Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Arkham Horror Archetype Guide. Today, we're going to be talking about the Survivor Archetype Discard Recursion. We've all played this archetype, I think, at the table. I think this is the first one that all of us have played, except for maybe, like, Get Clues in Seeker. Brandon, we just recorded a video where this was the thing you were doing. What's the goal of this archetype?
So this archetype, what we're trying to do is abuse our discard pile by returning cards to our hand, playing them out of our discard, things like that. Get to use our cards more than once.
Yeah. Let's talk about some notable cards, starting with a few investigators that can either enable this archetype or take advantage of it, or in a way that's printed on their cards. So both Wendy Adams and Ashcan Pete, they both have a discard ability printed on their card. So this would matter for things that are like just that a way to get stuff that you want to either play out of your discard pile. It's a great way of enabling that. Or alternatively, if you want to basically with discard recursion, you're not going to lose value by putting that card into your discard pile. So not only do you gain value out of both Wendy Adams and Ashcan Pete's ability here, but you also then can use that card on a future turn, which is which is the goal of this archetype. That's what you want to be doing. Will Yorick is a little bit different. He doesn't have an easy way of putting things into the discard pile, but he has a way to easily recur things from the discard pile. If they ever print an investigator that easily does both print on their card, we're in for a bad time. So then there's kind of like you have the... That. Sorry, Travis?
So I'd be pretty salty about that.
Yeah. So then with these guys, you have to kind of figure out how can I take advantage of the side I'm missing. Cornered is a great option for Will Yorick for this one, and also just generally for this archetype, because this just allows you to discard a card from your hand to basically turn that card into an unexpected courage. This is awesome in Will Yorick, but it also is great for just this archetype because it's just another way for you to discard cards into your discard pile and then recur them later while getting a benefit from it. That's kind of the ultimate goal here, to, while discarding cards, get a benefit from it, and Cornered is great for that. Travis, I'll give you these ones.
Alright. First up, we got two different scavengings. One's the level 0 version, one's the level 2 version. They both are, after you successfully investigate by 2 or more, you exhaust them to choose an item card in your discard pile and add it to your hand. But the level 2 version commits for an extra book, and you may also play the card from your discard pile, paying its cost, instead of adding it to your hand. These cards are like the discard recursion archetype has like 2 halves to it. Like one of them where you're discarding cards as a cost to get a benefit, and then the other half is like getting use out of the cards you discard, so it's all a benefit. These won't, well, the cards like Cornered put cards into your graveyard. These are the ones that get them out and let you reuse them again. Next one is Resourceful. If you've played a red deck, you should know this card. It's pretty good. Commits for a book, punch, or foot, and if the skill test is successful, you get a red card not named Resourceful in your discard pile back to your hand. You don't have to be the one performing the test.
Yeah.
It's a really good card. Play it in most of your red decks. And we have Scrounge for Supplies. Easy, 0-cost event. Add a level 0 card from your discard pile to your hand. Yeah. Again, not much to say about this. It's just a solid... You can just trade it for a different card, like Resourceful.
And like Resourceful will see play in like all your red decks, but it works very well once again with the goal of this archetype. So like it's going to kind of go above and beyond, not just like being a strong card. You're going to get some more benefit out of it as well, because you already got benefit for putting that card into your discard pile, assuming you did it that way.
If you're newer to the game, you might see a card like Scrounge for Supplies as being like kind of wasteful, where you're like, oh, why wouldn't I just play like a card that actually does something instead of playing this card that takes me another action to do something that I've already did. But what this card actually offers is options and flexibility, where, you know, it's a copy of an asset that you discarded that costs to like a Crypt Chill, or it's an extra copy of Guts, or it's a extra copy of a a high level red card that you got back through using scratch supplies to get back resourceful, and then commit resourceful to a test to get back your high level card. It's a lot of things, and all those things cost you like one extra action and one extra card, but they can be whatever you need.
Yeah, and usually as a survivor, you have the time for that as well, right? Because yeah. All right, well, Bryn, why don't you talk about these guys? These are
perfect.
All right, we got the Lantern, level 0 and level 2. Level 0 Lantern is investigate. Your location gets -1 shroud for this investigation. And as an action, you can discard the Lantern to deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. The level 2 Lantern costs 1 less to play. Still gives us the same -1 shroud on a location, but the discard can we now have the option to remove it from the game to deal 2 damage instead. This is pretty solid discard fodder, where we're not throwing it away from our hand, we're throwing it away from our play area. But we can use it for all kinds of things. Like, it's like a kind of a not great flashlight, and it's also damage that doesn't require a test. So, presumably if we're playing this card, we are kind of an investigating, focused red character. And we can just use this to solve smaller side enemies that show up on our location without bothering somebody else about it.
Yeah, and then when, like, for this one and both the Gravedigger Shovel upgraded, like, you're going to recur this, if you can recur this once, twice, 3 times, and just use it, and then on the last one, like when you're against the final boss, free 2 damage is great.
Free 2 damage is free 2 damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shovel is much the same, where we've got a level 0 and a level 2 one. As an action, we can fight to get +2 fist for the attack. We don't get to do any extra damage, but +2 fist is a fairly large number for beating on smaller guys. And as an action, we can discard it to discover a clue at your location. The upgraded one, similar to the Lantern, is the same, except it costs 1 less, and we can remove it from the game to discover 2 clues instead. I think the shovel is like slightly better than the Lantern in most regards, except for the fact that the Lantern commits for book symbols, which helps you with your scavenging. But yeah, this one again, like, it offers you a solid way to deal with small to mid-size enemies, or even just score an extra point to make your fighter's turn that much easier. And then also an option for someone who's not as good at investigating to investigate. And like Justin says, if you can use this more, like, a couple of times, how many clues did you really need to get that scenario?
Exactly.
You can dig up all kinds of things.
All right. Next up here, we got Old Keyring. So this one actually, after it's done, it just gets rid of it for you. So it's like an easy way that you don't need to like play another hand slot asset to get like to drop it. When there are no more keys on it, it just goes in your discard pile, and it's a really easy scavenge to get back. And it also helps you here because your location gets -2 shroud for this investigation. If you succeed, remove one key from Old Keyring. If you remember, scavenging cared about you succeeding by 2, and this gives you the 2 for scavenging. So easy way to find things there. There is also, so True Survivor's next. This one returns 3 innate skills from your discard pile to your hand. This is another kind of the other part of discard recursion, where it's not just like, you can also recur your skills, right? And True Survivor is the way to do this. Resourceful as well is innate, so you can use True Survivor to bring the Resourceful back to your hand, then as well as 2 other innate skills, and then use your Resourceful to grab True Survivor and put it back into your hand, play True Survivor to get Resourceful, 2 other innate skills back, and you basically just have like a built-in resource engine that's pretty, like, obviously it can go wrong, anything can go wrong here in this game, but it's pretty consistent. This is especially dirty in someone like Stella because your neither rain nor snow is also innate, and getting 2 of those cards and Resourceful back is like chef's kiss. It's pretty baller. Winging It and Impromptu Barrier both follow the same sort of logic, where you may play it from your discard pile, and if you do, you shuffle it back into your deck. And they both get a bonus if they're played from your discard pile. So Winging It is investigate your location gets -1 shroud, and if you played it from your discard pile, you discover 1 additional clue at your location if you succeed. Winging It is really nice, especially as kind of like your job to grab the occasional clue as part of the team. And with Ashcan Pete and Wendy Adams, it's very easy to get it into your discard pile without even having to play it, to the point where in Wendy Adams, it's like, and even in Ashcan Pete, it's preferable even to just use it as discard fodder and then play it from your discard because it is better that way. Impromptu Barriers evade. The chosen enemy gets -1 evade for this evasion attempt. If you played it from your discard pile, you may evade an additional enemy at the same location with evade value of X or lower. X is the amount you succeed by. These effects, while are very fringe cases, do have the times where they are relevant, and it's less of an issue to include Impromptu Barrier in your deck than something like Oops, even though they have a very similar kind of function where you need multiple or enemies, or I think there's even another card where you can evade multiple enemies at your location. I don't know, I don't play them, but this one's very helpful because no matter what, it's still readying an asset with Ashcan Pete or drawing another token with Wendy Adams. And then it's like a little panic button you can press if you are in the situation where it comes up. And it's not just sitting in your hand, not doing anything for the majority of the game.
Why aren't these 3 on the same slide, Justin?
Why aren't these 3 on the same? The Fortuitous Discovery? Oh, the improvised weapon?
What happened?
I just went in the order of the list you gave me. I'm sorry. Next up, we have Fortuitous Discovery, and one thing we like to do on this series especially is to talk about cards of why they're good even if we don't like them. I've had a lot of problems with Fortuitous Discovery, but in the right discard recursion deck, especially with Cornered, Ashcan Pete, Wendy Adams, the normal people I've said so far, it can be enabled much easier than just playing with it to play with it. So it has Myriad, which means you get 3 when you put in your deck, and it costs X, where X is the number of other copies of Fortuitous Discovery in your discard pile. And then Investigate, you get plus X books for this investigation. If you succeed, discover X additional clues to your location. So like Impromptu Barrier, this is something you just don't want to play, like the first one. You want to be using that for, I mean, like it costs 0, right? And then you can just see like, I have investigated at +0 and I get +0 clues. I've essentially just played an investigate action. However, using it for a discard ability is your goal. It's your goal with Fortuitous Discovery. You don't want to just be playing this card. And then if you ever can get it to work, I have done it maybe once. You get +2 book and 2 additional clues, which is nice for 1 action.
I mean, if you're playing an investigate character, playing the first Fortuitous Discovery is just a basic investigate action.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't the end of the world if that's your only way to get into your discard pile, but Justin is right, you would like to have a way to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it also works well for like enabling the fail by. It's a little bit of dovetail with the fail by archetype that we may or may not have discussed by this point.
We have, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fail by? No, we just had to fail.
I mean, like it's partly, and I don't remember, and partly I don't know what order these are coming out in. So.
Yeah, Bryn's just here for the ride.
Column A, column B. But yeah, you can just run the first one out to, do an investigate test.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And I mean, like in your Wendy Adams deck, we've always said that even if she had like 25 cards that are just blank and say draw another token, like that's still good for her ability, right? Like
it's still pretty good.
Still pretty okay, yeah.
Glimmer of Hope, Myriad as well, so you get 3. It costs 1. A Glimmer of Hope can only be played from your discard pile, and as it's add all copies of Glimmer of Hope in your discard pile to your hand, including this copy. So the Glimmer of Hope is a sick card in a discard recursion deck. I wouldn't say as much for like the Cornered one, but like in a Wendy Adams or an Ashcan Pete deck, this can do a lot of great things because it's a +1 to a skill for a test, or it's a readying an asset, which is usually used to ready Duke, or it's used to change a token, which is Wendy's goal whenever she would fail. And then you can spend 1 when they're all in your discard pile and just get them back.
Yeah. In the corner deck, it's pretty okay too though, because How many unexpected courages does your one cost event have to draw?
That's very true. That's a good
Right.
point as well.
Like if it gets you 2, is that good enough?
I guess
Maybe.
just in my head, maybe I'm just brainwashed by the game we just played, but I viewed like Cornered as like, I mean, it's good in everyone, but seeing what it does in like a Will Yorick deck, I was like, oh, that's sick.
No, it's cool. Like it's just more unexpected courage.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Yeah, like a Glimmer of Hope isn't its own card. It's like 1 money, you draw 3 cards for whatever other thing you're using them for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, like even like worst case, you have all 3 in your hand, and you just need to pass a test, play the 3, and then just buy them back. That's sick.
Yep, the hard part's finding all 3.
Yeah, exactly. Improvised weapon. So this is like the other ones that I did not put on the other slide because apparently I was not paying attention when I did this morning. Same thing. Cost 1. You may play it from your discard pile, and if you do, you get a bonus. So this one is fight. The attack enemy gets -1 fight for this attack. If you played improvised weapon from your discard pile, it deals +1 damage. This one's also really nice, in the same level as the Discovery one, which is named as already slipped my mind.
Winging it.
Thank you. Yeah, because like as Survivor, normally you're kind of just filling the gaps, right? Doing kind of like everything all right, and this is a good way to get advantage of, as I've talked about and said ad nauseum, the other stuff of using this to do something else and then killing an enemy with it for 2 damage. Like this card will do a lot more than just what it says printed on it, which is kind of like the whole theme of this archetype. Your cards do things twice.
It kills rats like a champ.
This one, like this one is like one where you can like just use this even as the 1 from your hand to just kill a rat, right? Like just make sure it happens. Like, is paying 1 resource and a card from your hand that you can play from your discard pile to ensure you pass a test? That's good, even if it's just against a rat.
Especially if you're like Wendy Adams or something. Although why you'd have this in your deck as Wendy Adams is anyone's guess. But if you're like not a great fighter,
yeah, just kind of like that's kind of like the thing that like. I mean, this is never. I'm not even gonna say that point. It's not important.
It's a card you can discard to redraw your tokens that you're not afraid to lose to abandon alone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
That's true.
The last one here, this one's kind of doubled up with Leather Coat and Cherished Keepsake. This is just like a good thing to recur from your discard. Like, it's especially when if you like, with the deck we're about to see. I also agree with the decision that Travis made, where generally staying with level 0 scavenging is kind of like good for this deck, so you don't really need to go and spend the experience on that. However, if you do want to do the level 2 scavenging, the Cherished Keepsake and the Leather Coat, you basically kind of like become an investigating Will Yorick and cannot die, which is a good thing. So I didn't put Leather Coat here. They're both from Path to Carcosa. They're both basically the same thing, just either 2 damage or 2 safety.
Leather
Coat's
Coat
base
is
set.
core set.
Is it core set? Wow.
Yeah, it's core.
Oh, for some reason my brain... Thank you. So yeah, it's core set, not Carcosa. I thought they came from the same cycle. Wow. Blows my mind. Sick. Oh, what does this synergize with? Great question, Justin. Let me answer that. It synergizes with Survivor skills, the archetype. True Survivor makes for good card advantage, as I said, meaning you can discard non-useless skills for discard benefits and return them to your hand later, and then just build a loop that never ends. It just goes on and on, my friends. Survivor Ally Recursion. So this one, whilst having slightly different goals with your scavenging, and also just like your recursion, these 2 archetypes share a lot of support and payoff cards in common. We will be doing another look at Ally Recursion because it is slightly more focused than discard recursion, and there's enough of pieces where there is a variance, but you'll hear us talk about all this stuff again when we get to that video. The last thing it synergizes with is Survivor Failing. Discard Recursion allows this archetype to use the discard as another toolbox to utilize during the game. This is like very hitting on the note of what Travis was saying with Scrounge for Supplies for why that card is so good, when it basically just reads draw another card. Like, think of it like what he was saying, where your discard pile is now a toolbox that you can pull the piece that you want, assuming it's level 0, or to enable you to do the broken things that you've already like say with True Survivor, you lose your resourceful. You could then use your scrounge for supplies to put it back into your hand and get the loop going again. Sick.
Yeah. Or if you're playing like a more skills focused deck, you can use it to return like some of the desperate skills to your hand.
Yes, yeah.
So then you can use them to fire up another action where you more or less can't fail.
Yeah. And like all of these, yeah, this is like the unique thing that like Survivor really has. So it kind of like permeates into all of their archetypes. So kind of like discard can fit into most things because 3 of the investigators we saw care about your discard power discarding cards.
Well, every investigator has to play cards.
Yeah, they do.
And you can discard all of them.
All right, Travis, what's our deck for this week?
This week's deck is a Wendy Adams deck.
Wow.
This is the closest thing that I play to Green Investigators. Yeah, this is a pretty basic Wendy deck, I guess. But it's going really, really hard on the recursion. A little bit more invested in it than you normally would be. At its core, it is a scavenging deck. You've got the 2 lanterns, the 2 level 2 newspapers to feed you the 2 books to keep recurring them. With 4 copies, you shouldn't have an issue finding 2 of them. Skeleton Key also commits for 2 books and is an item. Pretty sweet and just a great way to get clues. We got our Sharp Vision and technically Resourceful, I guess, also help with the clue getting, as well as our Winging It and Look What I Found's up in the event pile. Only other green card in the deck is 2 copies of Opportunist because they care about succeeding by 2 or more, and look at that, scavenging requires you to succeed by 2 or more. Amazing. We got our luckies because no red player leaves home without those. We've got our Glimmer of Hopes because it's just draw 3 cards for 1 money and an action. That's incredible. It's like 3 more token draws. It's ridiculous. We got some Test of Wills here because Wendy's got 4 brain, which is actually like kind of monstrous. And your odds of succeeding the test are quite high with a token redraw, even though you don't have a ton of brain symbols in the deck. The 3 fortuitous discoveries, again, as discussed earlier, it's just you don't want to play them until you get the 3rd one if you can avoid it for the most part, but playing the 3rd one is a big pile of clues, especially if you have a skeleton key on the location, and also it fits well into the sort of scavenging half the deck where you just always kind of have +2 book.
Mm-hmm.
Something copy of Impromptu Barriers here to keep you out of trouble should an enemy arise. And then 2 copies of Moonstone for your not relic slot, your accessory slot. Because it's super easy to play as Wendy, gives you +1 brain, +1 foot, like truly fantastic stats to have. And to be honest, like Wendy's amulet is not as good as it looks.
No, with this deck, you actually use Wendy's amulet to scavenge and get an unexpected courage.
Yes, it
back.
also commits for 2 wild.
Yeah,
right.
so like that's your goal with Wendy's amulet in this deck.
Yeah, nothing too spicy here. Just a big pile of good red cards and like a handful of green cards because I guess you can also play those.
It is worth noting that the interaction between the skeleton key, lantern, and winging it is much less cool than it seems like it would be.
On that note, though, putting a shroud down to 1 and then like using a fortuitous discovery to go to like 5, you're going to succeed by 2. You can scavenge. Even just being up with your Moonstone, being up 3, you're probably going to get your scavenging triggering quite a bit there. Moonstone does do book, right? You did say that, Travis? I've never played that card.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do book.
Moonstone is brain and foot.
Frick.
Yeah, it would be so good if it did book. But yeah, and as always, there's lots of this is a 32 experience deck, but it needs nowhere near that much to function. The Luckies don't need to be level 3s.
Yeah.
The Test of Wills realistically don't need to be level 2. The Look What I Founds can be level 0 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can trim a lot from this one.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you might be wondering at home, like, we talked about how Scrounge for Supplies was, like, so good and why it's not here. It does get worse as your deck gets more experienced, because it can only get level 0 cards. So even though it's a staple at the beginning, in a lot of red decks, it's pretty common to see cut, especially going into the last, like, 3 or 4 scenarios. You're just like...
Yeah, if you were building this deck, you could definitely just, like, have them in your deck and have them hang around until you start upgrading your lanterns and newspapers, and then maybe cut them for the sharp visions at some point.
Yep.
Yeah. It is also worth noting that Wendy's Amulet is not a level 0 card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You cannot get that one back.
Also, the sharp vision is only a 1 experience card, not 2 as denoted in this
Oh, dang. Thank you for letting me know.
It is 2 in total. So...
Maybe I just multiplied. Or really, it's just because, I'm dumb. But that's the deck. Next week...
Not dumb, you're just... Don't think when you make these.
No, I do go on autopilot. You're 100% right. Next, the description for the deck list will be below with the correct experience there. Next week, we're going to be back for another Archetype guide, or if Arkham DB has the stuff up, the Innsmouth Cycle Investigators, but it'll probably be Archetype guide. I don't know what's happening there. But what archetype do you want to see next? We're keeping it going. We still have quite a few on Travis's list. We actually have like at least 3 more decks for each color. So there's still a lot coming.
More weeks.
But keep your suggestions coming too. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.